The NFC hasn't had a Super Bowl champion since the Los Angeles Rams in the 2022 season, but all that looks to be changing with the newfound youth and talent all throughout the NFC, from the NFC North with Caleb Williams, Super Bowl contending Packers and Lions, to the dark horse of a division in the NFC West, who I do believe will get 3 teams into the playoffs this year. The NFC truly does have it all, so I thought I would follow up my AFC Explained video with an NFC version and go through every division and the headlines throughout every single one. This is the entire NFC Explained. The NFC West has long been one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL, but somehow I think it's going to be completely underrated heading into the 2024 NFL season. We have a Super Bowl runner-up that's still trying to recover from that heartbreaking loss in overtime, and a talented pack of veteran stars and plucky underdogs trying to chase them down. Throughout this division too, there are a lot of new coaches in the mix and some very talented draft picks to keep an eye on. So in today's video, we're going to go team by team and figure out how this division might shake out, and I'm going to give my prediction of who's going to win the division, as well as each team's record, as well as give my reasoning for why the NFC West is the most underrated division in the NFL. Now, I think this is honestly going to shock a lot of people that I'm about to make this prediction, but I'm going to give the Rams the edge in the NFC West this year. It's crazy that the Rams are this high considering where they were this time last year. Los Angeles entered the 2023 season as one of the weakest rosters in the NFL, with many expecting them to have a better shot at the #1 overall pick rather than the playoffs. Instead, they produced one of the most exciting offenses in the NFL and overperformed on defense. This was mainly thanks to the emergence of some supremely talented draft picks led by Nakua on offense and Kobe Turner on defense. Nakua erupted onto the scene with 10 catches for 119 yards in his first game, setting up a remarkable rookie campaign in which he tallied 1,486 yards and 6 touchdowns in the regular season.
Stafford with backside pressure has to get rid of it, into traffic, and Nakua!
Wow! 3rd down and 4. Stafford throws, there he is! Nakua to the end zone!
On the other side of the ball, Turner proved a very useful option on the interior of that defensive line next to Aaron Donald, notching 9 sacks.
Kobe's in his face. Turner's got him! It's music to our ears at the end of week 13.
Both players came second in voting for their corresponding rookie awards, with Steve Avila and Byron Young also turning out impressive rookie campaigns. I mean, overall, it was a very good 2023 draft haul from Les Snead and his team, which combined with some good picks from previous years to get this team into the unlikely position to compete in 2023. Now with Cooper Kupp fully healthy and ready to join Nakua for the entire season, the Rams are ready to take the league by storm, I do think. Honestly, I'm going to give this team a ceiling of like 12-5, mainly because I think that they will have one of the best offenses in the NFL just by the way of Matthew Stafford, Kyren Williams, and the 2 wide receivers mentioned earlier. And I think that the defensive additions in this year's draft and free agency should help improve what was a weaker unit last year. Like, I mean, for Mahomes and all these other guys that get a lot of recognition at the top of the NFL, Matthew Stafford can still sling the rock, and honestly, I think he is still possibly like a fringe top 10 quarterback in the league. And like, I mean, honestly, I'm sure Rams fans, if you're out there, you are just drooling at seeing Matthew Stafford finally get to throw the ball to not only Cooper Kupp this year, but also Puka Nakua, and just having both of those guys as solid options for Matthew Stafford is exactly what he's needed and been wanting for his career. And then not to mention when you have Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell also behind those guys, I mean, they have a slew of weapons that Matthew Stafford can use at his disposal whenever he wants to. And look, I mean, if the passing game falters in any game, then don't worry, because Kyren Williams proved himself as a tough and versatile back in both the run and pass game last year.
1st and goal from the 6. Stafford, Williams, blockers in front, the cutback, and the touchdown. Higby in motion on 3rd and 1. Williams towards the goal line, pushing through for the touchdown.
And the draft selection of Blake Corum gives the team a talented and very similar backup. Jonah Jackson bolsters the offensive line after joining from Detroit, which allows the team to shuffle over Steve Avila to center and solidify a very large interior for the running backs to work behind. And honestly, I think the floor scenario for the Rams does kind of come down to really how well their defense ends up playing. Like, I mean, as we all know, the main departure that everybody's going to know and kind of take notice is the fact that Aaron Donald is no longer in the middle to clog things up. And like, I mean, losing a key defensive player is never good, but when it's arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest defensive tackle of all time to play that position, it's going to be even more noticeable. Donald's production isn't the only thing that will be missed though, with the double and triple teams he demanded also going with him. That creates a whole new test for this young defense, who have benefited from less attention when Donald was on the field. Kobe Turner got off to a great start last year, and he will be joined on the D-line by 2 high draft picks in 2024, Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. There is talent there for sure, and the upside is higher given Fisk and Verse dominated together at college, but you never know with rookies, and the range of outcomes is fairly high. In the secondary, Darius Williams, Cameron Curl, and the often injured Tre'Davious White have been brought in to improve what was a weak unit last year. And don't get me wrong, these are definitely upgrades, but the secondary for this team is an area that has seen big fluctuations in performances from year to year. There is certainly a very attractive ceiling where the rookies on the D-line play well, and the additions to the secondary make life tricky for opposing passing games, but the floor could lead to a porous defense. Nevertheless, the offense is just so talented, and defensive players should improve as the season progresses, leading me to give this potential floor of 10 wins to 7 losses for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, second place for me in the NFC West will be the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, I know they have a seriously talented roster, but the Super Bowl hangover has hit this team before, and the offseason hasn't exactly been smooth.
Breaking news here on NFL Live, wide receiver Brandon Ayuk has requested a trade. Ayuk skipping the 49ers offseason program.
In Brock Purdy's first full season in charge, the 49ers posted a 12-5 regular season record before narrowly losing in overtime to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And as we all know, back in 2019, they also went to the Super Bowl off the back of a 13-3 regular season record, but they followed up that defeat in the Super Bowl in 2019 with a disappointing 6-10 record. I mean, however, that was largely because of an injury due to Jimmy Garoppolo, but still, nevertheless, it was a 6-10 record coming off the back of a Super Bowl loss. And I'm not fully expecting a drop-off anywhere near that severe in 2024, but I do think the emotional toll of the loss to Kansas City will hit them a little bit. I mean, after coming so close so many times in the last 5 years and having the game in their grasp in the Super Bowl earlier this year, how do you keep motivating yourself to just go do it again and maybe have the same result of losing over and over and over? But I mean, regardless of the Super Bowl hangover, their talent alone makes them a serious contender in the division.
Third down, blitz is coming. Purdy has it blocked. Floating one downfield for Kittle. He's got it! Touchdown, San Francisco!
However, as we all know, I mean, I don't think he's going to get traded now, as we're now starting to see hopefully everything kind of come down and he's going to stay with the Niners, but the potentially imminent departure of Brandon Ayuk would change things considerably if somehow he was traded in the coming weeks. And like, I mean, while Deebo Samuel is a very unique offensive weapon and Jawan Jennings is a third down machine, Ayuk is definitely their number one guy.
Lance given time, steps into a wide open Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk inside the 20.
I mean, it's easy to see he is the downfield separator who Purdy goes to in his moments of need, and the pair were almost automatic on out routes last year, showing an almost unstoppable chemistry week in and week out.
The motion man, Purdy scans. There's Ayuk in the middle to the end zone, touchdown.
If he does get traded again, that would be huge and would severely hamper the chances of their deep playoff run, in my opinion. In theory, if he does get traded, Ricky Pearsall has been drafted to offer a similar skill set, but he is a rookie and his preseason has been slightly derailed by injury. As we all know, Christian McCaffrey, of course, remains one of the most dangerous weapons in the entire NFL, but a preseason calf injury is also not ideal entering the season. As we flip to the defensive side of the ball, Eric Armstead is out after being a stalwart in the middle of the defensive line for years, with Javon Kinlaw also heading out the door. Kinlaw never really fully established himself there, but was a rotational piece that needed to be replaced nevertheless. Malik Collins is the guy slotting in alongside Javon Hargrave in the middle of the line, with Leonard Floyd bringing his talents over from Buffalo to line up across from Nick Bosa on the edge. Dre Greenlaw and their strong safety are both key players, but are both coming off of serious injuries. Greenlaw did suffer his back in the Super Bowl when actually trying to run onto the field, so there may be a little bit of time before we do see him fully get back to the field. And now their signings, there really weren't many big name signings for San Francisco, who already have a long list of expensive names on the roster, which as a result, they will turn out a pretty similar unit in 2024, which isn't exactly a bad thing given they came so close to the Super Bowl. For me, their ceiling is an 11-6 record, which is one worse than they would have posted last year, and honestly, that would come further down if Ayuk is going to get traded somehow. Their floor, I would say, is about 9-8, which doesn't give them a big range of possible outcomes, but I think that makes sense given the talent on this roster, and coming in with that Super Bowl hangover lingering, I think it is still going to take a toll on this team. Now, this next one might surprise you, but I'm going to go with Arizona up next. They are coming off of an awful 2023 campaign in which their defense was potentially the worst in the NFL, with 26.8 points conceded per game, which placed them 31st in the NFL, not helped by their dead last run defense, which gave up 143.2 yards per game. But like, I mean, let's be honest, it's not going to be easy to win games when you simply are just unable to stop the run, so they definitely did have to get that part of their game figured out. And while we can't expect a complete turnaround from this defensive unit, we hopefully can see just some slight improvements this year with the additions that they have made, as well as honestly with how good they were looking at the end of the season. Hopefully that kind of did carry over into the season this year.
The new pieces added, I think, elevated the mindset of what needs to get done with that group for the defense and the team to have success.
Not to mention also that their offense has been looking very, very well in training camp, and Marvin Harrison Jr., who we're going to talk about in a second, has been absolutely routing up Colts defenders. And in training camp, Marvin Harrison has been the big ticket item that has arrived via the draft, and the primary reason to be excited. But there is a lot more to this new look offense than just him. Trey McBride broke out as an elite game-breaking tight end in 2023, completing a formidable trio of him, Harrison Jr., and quarterback Kyler Murray. Complementing McBride and Harrison Jr. is an exciting duo made up of sophomore wideout Michael Wilson, who brings plenty of potential, and the dependable slot receiver Greg Dortch, who has a knack for popping up with big plays. As a rookie, Wilson tallied 565 yards and 3 touchdowns, setting the stage for a potential breakout season in better conditions in 2024.
Good got him again in the end zone. Got him. Wilson, the diving catch and a touchdown.
With a full year of experience under his belt, Kyler Murray back at quarterback, and Marvin Harrison Jr. absorbing plenty of attention, Wilson should enjoy himself this year. Coming into this year, this offense honestly has a lot of potential to really just surprise a lot of people. It's honestly super crazy that not many people bring this up, but the fact is that when Kyler Murray was last healthy, he led the Cardinals to a top 10 finish in total yardage for the offense. Not many people bring that statistic up about the Cardinals. As we all know, Murray is a dynamic dual threat quarterback who now finds himself piloting a young and talented offense. In the backfield, he's flanked by 2 powerful running backs, James Conner and Trey Brenson, who can wear down defenses with their physicality. The team's decision to then draft a blocking tight end in the 3rd round clearly signals an intention to establish a relentless and physical ground game. And if they succeed, that'll only help this entire offense and make them a tricky unit to handle. But overall, after not posting horrendous 4-win seasons, it's still 4-win seasons, so we can't really get fully carried away here. The offensive line still needs to improve significantly for the offensive master plan to work, and there are plenty of deficiencies on the defensive side of the ball. One of the few bright spots for the team was unfortunately taken away before week 1 even arrived, with BJ Ojulari suffering a season-ending injury at the beginning of August. This dude was set up for a breakout year after a strong rookie season, but now we will never get to see that. To help bolster this unit though, the Cardinals have brought in Justin Jones from Chicago and Nichols from Las Vegas to solidify the interior defensive line, with Mac Wilson coming in at linebacker and Sean Murphy Bunting adding much needed skill and experience at cornerback. Injuries have been a little bit of a problem for Murphy Bunting, but a healthy season from him would offer a significant upgrade. Even with new additions in place, this defense is still just really lacking in talent. In recognizing the issue, Cardinals front office addressed the D-line and secondary room early in the draft, bringing in Darius Robinson and Max Melton. They also then quadrupled down on defensive backs by taking 3 more over the remainder of the draft. So overall, this is just a really inexperienced and unproven group, but at least there is a potential for breakouts there and some useful veteran talent to lead the way. Despite these concerns on defense, the Cardinals come in at 3rd in my predictions because of just how optimistic I am about Kyler Murray and this offense. I honestly think that this offense can really make up for the defensive deficiencies and a tough schedule, and if the young defense can learn in the first half of the season, I could even see this team pushing for a ceiling of 10 wins. If I'm going to be honest and just kind of take a shot in the dark right here, they are a great dark horse to win the division if everything goes their way and the 2 teams above them hit their floors. Who knows, maybe a playoff run as well from the Cardinals. In the worst case scenario in which the defense continues to struggle and the tough schedule does get the better of them, I will give the Cardinals a floor of 7 wins and 10 losses. Overall though, there are real reasons for optimism here, and honestly every single Cardinals fan I've talked to have been super excited, aka my brother pretty much. And even in the worst case scenario, I think the Cardinals are 3 wins better than last year. Now in last place for me though in the NFC West is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. Not because I think Seattle is going to just stink, but simply because the Arizona Cardinals are just so underrated. Also, this is the one team in the division that is seeing a significant coaching change, with Mike McDonald coming in as a head coach and Ryan Grubb taking over from Shane Waldron as offensive coordinator.
Let's start in Seattle, where the Seahawks named former Ravens defensive coordinator Mike McDonald as their new head coach.
Ryan Grubb is going to be the new coordinator
coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. And with it, I see a good, I see a bad, and then obviously an ugly.
Both of these guys are arriving in Seattle off the back of very successful seasons in coordinator positions, with McDonald in Baltimore and Grubb masterminding the Washington Huskies offense. But it is important to remember that it can take time for new systems to be implemented and players to be brought up to speed. There also has been some significant turnover on the roster, with Keandre Diggs and Jamal Adams headlining the list of departures. Leonard Williams was the big offseason signing after joining midway through the 2023 season, but he did little to prevent what was just a glaring issue for the team now, and it's been their run defense. In 2023, Seattle allowed the 31st most yards on the ground and the 30th most rushing touchdowns conceded. Hopefully new defensive tackle Hankins and the incoming cohort of new linebackers can help on this front, but the most significant move to solidify this weakness came in the draft in the form of Byron Murphy.
The Seattle Seahawks select Byron Murphy, defensive tackle, Texas.
Murphy's a powerful defensive tackle who can really threaten the quarterback, but more importantly is stout against the run. The Seahawks using their first rounder to strengthen the heart of the D-line was good to see though. Of course, the standout player on the defensive side of the ball in Seattle is sophomore cornerback Devin Witherspoon, who showed flashes of an elite player in 2023 and looks set to become a top defensive back for this team in 2024 alongside Tariq Woolen. Despite the excitement surrounding Witherspoon though, it is the offense that stands out as the dominant side of the ball for the Seahawks. Ryan Gribb's arrival in Seattle is great news for the likes of DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN, and of course Geno Smith though. While in Washington, Grubb helped Michael Penix Jr. produce a dominant passing offense that was second in the nation only behind Oregon. The trio of receivers that they had while on the field together in Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan all thrived, with each player posting a 1,000-yard season in 2022 or 2023. And honestly, that's just excellent news for Seattle fans who really want to see their exciting trio of receivers get unleashed this season. With Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet then offering a lethal 1-2 combo out of the backfield, this offense is also looking incredibly potent entering the 2024 campaign. Like the Cardinals, Seattle has some serious concerns along the offensive line though. There is talent at the tackle position in Charlie Cross and Abraham Lucas. However, Lucas is coming off of a season-ending injury in 2023, and the inside of the line was a mess. Hopefully, Seattle's third-round draft pick Christian Haynes can shore things up for a bit for them at guard so that we can properly enjoy what is otherwise a loaded offense. Overall though, I really do see just the similarities between the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Honestly though, I kind of see the Seahawks going down a similar path that of the Cardinals, and who knows, maybe even the Seahawks could steal the division. It's really anybody's division, I think. And yes, while Seattle does have more established talent in their defense, I think the turnover of coaching staff and the time it will take to adjust to the new system brings them down to just the level that I have them at. With that being said, I am going to give them the same predicted ceiling and floor outcome, but give Arizona the tiebreaker because I really think Kyler is going to be special this year. So for Seattle in last place, I have their ceiling at about 10-7 and their floor at 7-10. From a team full of young talent, a quarterback coming off of a serious injury, and the possibility of being a serious contender, a team still trying to make a name for themselves under a new head coach and a journeyman quarterback, to two teams that will likely be in the bottom 5 of the NFL, the NFC South is quite possibly the worst division in the NFL.
Has there been a play, whether an individual or team period out here, that's made you stop and been like, oh, we're going to be good this year? It's okay if it was your own.
Yeah, not really.
And in today's video, we're going to be going over what makes this the worst division in the NFL, as well as how I believe only one of these teams from the division will make the playoffs. This is why the NFC South is the worst division in the NFL. Now we're going to start with the Atlanta Falcons, and what an offseason it has been for them. While they did have a little bit of bad press around the Michael Penix pick in the draft, they have been nearly perfect aside from that. They were already considered a likely favorite to edge out Tampa Bay to win the NFC South, but after a busy week of transactions that has seen them bring in Matthew Judon and Justin Simmons, it's surely their division to lose. And now, yes, I know that either of those players that were mentioned aren't very young anymore, but they still can make an impact on this roster. And on top of that, the Atlanta Falcons finally get a position of need that they haven't had for like the past decade in Matthew Judon. For years, the Falcons have been neglecting the pass rushing position, which is one of the reasons why the Penix pick was so controversial. The fans wanted a premier pass rusher there, and instead they got a backup quarterback in the first round and waited until round 3 to select Braylon Trice as their edge rusher. Unfortunately for Trice, he did tear his ACL earlier in the preseason, which is a heartbreaker for him and perhaps gave Atlanta even more motivation to go after Judon. And honestly, for me, I love the Judon trade. The dude is a fantastic pass pass rusher, and I definitely think he's going to be a factor that helps get this team over the edge. Not only will he be an invaluable asset for Atlanta in rushing the passer, but he will also help the defense as a whole. If he can upgrade this D-line and make them a more dangerous unit, that will filter through the secondary and make the defense an all-around much tougher group to attack. Last year, Judon missed most of the 2023 season with a torn bicep, but in just 4 games, he still managed to produce 8 sacks, and across 2 seasons prior, he picked up 28. Like, I mean, the dude can still play, and he is the perfect addition for Atlanta. Now, of course, the other big addition this offseason was Kirk Cousins, who answers a quarterback question that has been plaguing the Falcons ever since Matt Ryan left. He's definitely coming off of a serious injury with the Achilles, but the hope is that he can return and deliver the kind of play that put him over 4,200 yards in every season between 2020 and 2022. And I mean, even prior to his injury last year, he was on track to match that 4,200 yards again and continue that streak. And I mean, if he can continue that streak, that will be exciting news for Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and company, especially when you consider the very talented running back room that defenses also have to worry about, comprising of Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. And like, I mean, when we look at the offensive line, they're a top 10 unit as well. So I mean, really, the Falcons have everything they need on the offensive side of the ball. Like, I mean, I think it's safe to say that the Falcons this year are all in, and if they don't win it, it's pretty much just a Super Bowl or bust year at this point with all the additions that they have made. Like, I mean, when you look at the very talented offense, they've got everything. They've got Kirk, they've got Bijan, they've got a #1 wide receiver and a star tight end in Kyle Pitts. Like, not much more you can ask for if you're a Falcons fan there. And then, I mean, when you flip to the defensive side of the ball too, they've got everything you need on that side of the ball as well, and a premier pass rusher in Matthew Judon, AJ Terrell, and Jeffrey Simmons now that they just signed as well. Like, again, this defense is looking very scary right now. Like, I mean, honestly, at this point, everything pretty much hinges on how well Kirk Cousins will play this season, and then after that, it just comes down to how good Michael Penix is after Kirk Cousins leaves in, what, 1 to 2 years maybe? Like, I mean, it's definitely no doubt the Falcons are a top team in my estimations in not only the NFC South, but the entire NFL, I'd say too. I am giving them a ceiling of 13 wins and a floor of 9. I mean, I honestly can't wait to see if they get it done. As a Saints fan, it does hurt me to say that, but honestly, I think this team is very, very good and kind of flying under the radar right now. And like, I mean, honestly, when we look at their schedule, this seems like pretty much a cakewalk besides those 2 games early against the Eagles and Chiefs at the beginning of the season. And I mean, the Cowboys are always a juggernaut in the regular season too, so that November 3rd matchup might be a little bit closer. But I mean, besides that, there's really no other good teams on this schedule, and I mean, they look like they should at least win no less than 11 games this year. Now, my second place team in the NFC South is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are entering the season having locked up quarterback Baker Mayfield on a 3-year, $115 million deal. Last year, Mayfield passed his audition with flying colors, overachieving and even somehow securing a wildcard round win over the Eagles. However, he will have to do it without the offensive coordinator Dave Canales, who has taken up the vacant head coaching role in Carolina. Canales is widely praised for his role in not only helping Baker, but also helping Geno Smith re-find his form in Seattle before heading back over to Tampa Bay and helping Baker there. And honestly, it's going to be really interesting to see how Baker gets on without him. One criticism of Canales last year could be his resilience on a poor run game, not helped by a woeful offensive line. The Bucs averaged just 3.4 yards per carry, which ranks dead last in the NFL. Nevertheless, Rachaad White was constantly asked to pound the rock, registering the 2nd most carries, but just the 14th most yards, not even surpassing 1,000 yards. The good news on the front is that Tampa Bay found a beast in the draft though. And I mean, honestly, in Graham Barton, this dude's already been raising eyebrows in the preseason. Barton can pretty much play any position on the offensive line, but he looks set to slot in at center. With Tristan Wirfs still going strong at left tackle and sophomore Cody Mock coming off of a rookie season in which he played all 17 games, hopefully this unit can improve and provide Baker with a much more balanced offense. In the passing game, we really all know how good Mike Evans can be, and I expect an even better season from Chris Godwin now that he is moving back into the slot. But fans are also very excited to see how a 3rd-round rookie Jalen McMillan, who was 1/3 of the Washington Huskies dynamic receiver trio and has also been impressing a lot during training camp. I mean, on this offense too, there is a lot of talent, just honestly a lot of underrated talent that's hopefully going to be able to just really elevate Baker this season. On defense though, the Bucs have just really become renowned for dominating against the run, thanks large in part to their top tier nose tackle Vita Vea. Because of his daunting presence in the middle, we can expect teams to take to the air to win against the Bucs. While that is definitely the right thing to do, it doesn't mean that it's going to be be easy though. I mean, in the secondary, they do have Antonio Winfield Jr., who is arguably the best safety in the NFL and has just been paid accordingly too. He had 3 interceptions, 12 passes defended, and also notched the second most tackles on the team last year with 122. Like, I mean, it's safe to say this dude is a leader of this defense, benefiting from a very solid Jamel Dean, Travere Thomas, and Jordan Whitehead alongside him. I mean, honestly, the secondary is going to need to be good too and at least stick to those receivers, because the one area of weakness in the defense is probably their pass rush. Kalijah Cansey, Yaya Dabai, and Randy Gregory all have the potential to contribute, but it feels like the Bucs are missing that big name who can really attack the quarterback. As we just saw with the Falcons going and getting Judon, the Bucs really don't have that guy on their defensive line. It'll be a really solid year, just like a 9 or 10 win season for the Bucs. And honestly, again, just like the Falcons, how it came down to Kirk, it's really going to come down to how Baker does without Canales, helping him navigate this offense. And with that being said, I think the ceiling for this team is around like the 9 or 10 win mark, which would be a 1-game improvement. However, I am very aware that his career has tended to fluctuate from season to season, and with question marks surrounding the offensive line, I could see the floor of this team being around the 7-win mark. Now, in a shocking turn of events, I don't have the Carolina Panthers in last place in this division. Last year was a mess, don't get me wrong, but they have made a sensible and really good moves to support their struggling quarterback, and Dave Canales is absolutely the right guy to hopefully get him back on track. As we just went over before, he worked wonders with Baker Mayfield last year, resulting in the journeyman quarterback earning his first lucrative deal since his frustrating departure from Cleveland, as we just discussed. And like, I mean, look, Bryce Young had absolutely nothing to work with last year when dropping back to pass, and the offensive line only made things worse. He was sacked 62 times, completing just 59.8% of his passes for 2,877 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Like, it was just really bad last year. Thankfully, the Panthers did realize that they really just had to upgrade at a lot of spots to hopefully help Bryce Young. And in this offseason and coming into the preseason, that's exactly what they've done. Starting off, Robert Hunt earned a very nice $100 million contract to protect Bryce Young from the right guard position for the next 5 years, with Damian Lewis taking over at left guard. Like, Hunt has allowed just 12 sacks on over 3,300 snaps, whereas Lewis earned a 97.2% pass block efficiency rating. And I mean, on paper, this is a fantastic upgrade to the interior line for Young, and one that could be essential in him actually being able to show what he can do. And with the protection finally being sorted too, Carolina then made sure to improve Young's receiving options. Deontay Johnson is the headline name, joining the Panthers in a fantastic trade in which they gave up just a 6th-rounder and cornerback Dante Jackson. Johnson's exactly what Young needs. Like, the dude can absolutely separate from coverage, which was a rarity last year in Carolina, and he has the juice to properly threaten the secondary. And don't get me wrong, last year Thielen was getting peppered with targets because he was the only guy that really could get open. But now for Bryce Young to now be able to send all those targets to a much younger and better athlete in Johnson is brilliant for his development. Johnson taking over the #1 role allows Thielen to slip back into a better suited support role from the slot, with Jonathan Mingo and rookie Xavier Legette hopefully developing and adding a spark as well. The team also drafted tight end Jatavion Sanders, who was a popular prospect during the pre-draft process. But an even more popular prospect was running back Jonathan Brooks, who the Panthers traded up for in the 2nd round. There's every chance that he would have been a 1st-round draft pick if he hadn't suffered an ACL tear in the later stages of the 2023 season. But I mean, this dude is a dynamic all-around running back who adds much needed spark to the offense. He's another who could benefit from the new additions of the offensive line and yet another new target to help Bryce Young in the passing game. Sadly though, on the defensive side of the ball, Brian Burns was traded, which cleared up space for the Panthers to sign Jadeveon Clowney, who continues his tour of various NFL rosters. And despite being 31, Clowney can honestly still bring some heat when needed as a 3rd down rusher, and even as early down rushes too if needed. He had 9.5 sacks for the Ravens last year, which tied his career high, but that was on a much more talented unit and a contending team. It honestly might be a little bit of a stretch to expect the same out of him in Carolina. Nevertheless though, he still is a good name to add to the defense, and he was joined by other good veterans such as Josie Jewell, Dane Jackson, DJ Wanham, Troy Hill, Xavier Woods, and Jordan Fuller. There's a lot of new names on this defense, and it remains to be seen really how they're going to be able to work with each other on this unit. But then with JC Horn then anchoring the secondary, this defense honestly has plenty of talent to build around, and in 2023 they allowed the 4th fewest yards in the league, surrendering just 4,997 yards. However, the spotlight in 2024 will definitely be on Bryce Young. The offensive additions made this offseason should help his development considerably, and when we factor in the already solid defense, I could see the Panthers improving to a ceiling of like 8 wins in 2024 with a floor of 5. I mean, as we look at their schedule, honestly, it's not the easiest, but it's also not the hardest schedule either. I mean, like at the beginning of their schedule, they do have some tough games against the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Bears, which I fully do expect to be a playoff contending team this year. But then again, they go on a bit of a stretch where they have Denver, New Orleans, the Giants. But then again, they go through a stretch where they have the Kansas City Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Eagles, and then the Cowboys, which all could be playoff teams right there. So again, this is going to be like a bottom 5 team in the NFL, I believe. Now, as it may surprise many of you, and considering that I am a Saints fan myself, I am fully going to humble all Saints fans out there right now and say that in my estimation, I truly do believe the Saints are going to come in last place in this division. Like, I mean, ever since the glory days of Drew Brees and Sean Payton, this has really just felt like a team that is wallowing in just mediocrity and not knowing which way to go, and just always finishing in the middle of the pack with like 7 or 6 wins. Like, really never bad enough to get a super high pick or never really good enough to make the playoffs. Like, they're just in limbo right now. And I mean, several quarterbacks have tried but failed to solve this problem, resulting in the big bucks deal for Derek Carr. And honestly, I'm not sure he has made Saints fans feel much better either, with just Twitter just completely just shredding this dude every time something is posted about him. But I mean, like, in Carr's defense, he did string together some nice performances in the later stages of the 2023 season, and he should benefit from the arrival of Clint Kubiak as offensive coordinator. Kubiak spent last year helping Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk produce career bests en route to a Super Bowl, which should please fans who want to see a big year from Carr and Chris Olave. And look, I mean, it's pretty much safe to say that Olave is the primary source of excitement on this offensive unit. Like, he's about as speedy as they come and can absolutely separate with ease from any cornerback. He's gone for over 1,000 yards in each of his first 2 seasons in the NFL, yet somehow it feels like he has much more to give to this team. And like, I mean, hopefully even coming from a Saints fan with the Kubiak system in place, we can really see Olave kind of unleash this year, even though his training camp interview didn't really kind of convince anybody, but it would make a huge difference to this team. But I mean, really, the success of this team isn't really hindering on the quarterback that not many Saints fans really like, but it comes down to just this horrendous offensive line that they have. Like, I mean, after selecting Trevor Penning in the first round 2 years ago, the Saints have endured an injury-plagued rookie season and a mistake-riddled sophomore campaign that saw him benched after just 6 games. Like, I mean, he is a big factor in why this unit has struggled so much, but it's not the only one. Like, I mean, this is probably one of the worst offensive lines in the league, which doesn't bode well when you have a quarterback who needs all the help he can get, and 2 29-year-old running backs in Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams. Oh, and to make matters even worse, the offensive lineman that they just did draft this past year in the first round, he's now suffering from back injuries too, so we really don't know how in the lineup he's going to be or out of the lineup he's going to be, so that's not great either. And then when we flip to the defensive side of the ball, I mean, just age is the biggest factor for that side of the ball. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, and Tyrann Mathieu are all undoubtedly playing at a high level, but are all comfortably past 30 now, and a decline or increased injury risk would come as no surprise. Jordan played through injury last year and is an absolute machine, having missed just 1 game throughout his entire career, but the mileage has to be taking a toll. And while there are exciting names on the defensive line, including Carl Granderson, Brian Breezy, and free agent signing Chase Young, I really just think that this team has too many deficiencies and issues across the rest of the roster to even effectively be good this year. Like, I mean, fundamentally, it starts with the offensive line, and that's just terrible. Like, really, I'm not expecting much improvement there, which is why I'm setting their ceiling at like a disappointing, again, 7 wins, which they might get to, but then they're going to get like a 13th pick overall or something like that. But I really hope that they do tank as a Saints fan this year, and their floor, I think, is honestly like 4 wins. Like, it might even be 3. That's just how bad this team is. And truly, I do think that this is not only the worst team in the division, but quite possibly one of the worst teams in the NFL too. And I think Dennis Allen might be the first coach to get fired this year. The NFC North is undoubtedly one of the most competitive divisions in the NFL this year, and I mean, it's known for its historic rivals, passionate fan bases, and brutal winter games. But what if I told you that every single team in this division has a legitimate shot at taking the crown this season? And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down why the Packers, Bears, Vikings, and Lions each have a shot at winning the NFC North, along with making the playoffs and quite possibly making a run in the playoffs this year. And not only that, we're going to go through each roster and their strengths and weaknesses and what I do fully expect. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give my prediction of who is going to win this division. This is why the NFC North is anyone's for the taking. All right, so we are going to start off with my personal favorite to win the division, the Green Bay Packers, a team that has dominated the NFC North for much of the past decade. As we've all known, though, they have a new star under center, and I mean, they just can't keep getting away with getting these Hall of Fame potential quarterbacks. They've had Aaron Rodgers, they've had Brett Favre, now they have Jordan Love. I mean, last year, Love played like a seasoned veteran down the stretch of last year, throwing for over 4,100 yards and 32 touchdowns in his first season starting. And due to that performance too, he got paid in the offseason like 1-2 after the Packers gave him one of the most lucrative contracts in NFL history with $220 million over the next 4 years. Although they no longer have the benefit of a quarterback on his rookie deal, their wide receiver room is all incredibly talented and at an affordable price too. Former first-round pick Christian Watson has a lot of upside, and both Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks are extremely athletic weapons with boatloads of upside for the coming season.
The Green Bay Packers had the youngest set of skill position players in the National Football League last year. So imagine all of those players going in year 2 together in this offense with Matt LaFleur. It's just going to be phenomenal. I think the growth that we're going to see offensively is going to be great. And I haven't even talked about the defensive side of football.
And I mean, one of the biggest reasons I think why the Packers can win the NFC North this year is because of their defense. It honestly has looked pretty good. Just ignore the fact that they weren't playing any starters against the Broncos. That doesn't count, okay? And plus it's preseason. But besides that, their defense, when they have starters in, looks pretty good. It's really loaded with young and talent at every level of it too. Despite firing their defensive coordinator last season, PFF graded their defense as one of the top units in the league overall, and they certainly have the potential to be even better this year. The D-line is anchored by Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary, two of the Packers' longest tenured players and biggest impact players throughout all phases of the game. Then we look at the secondary, and the Packers boast one of the league's top cornerbacks in Jair Alexander. Alexander is a lockdown cornerback who can just take away any opponent's best receiver, allowing the rest of the defense to focus on their threats. One of the biggest acquisitions that Green Bay made this offseason was picking up Xavier McKinney at free safety. He's going to be bringing in much needed veteran leadership to the defensive backs and pair quite nicely with strong safety Javon Bullard. The Packers defense, though, it's not just about the players on the field and just all the talent they have there too, it's the coaching that makes them even better. First-year defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley is implementing a system that emphasizes a base 4-3 defense in order to benefit from their performance in the run game and take advantage of their strong personnel groups on the defensive line. And straight up honestly, if this Packers defense can stay healthy and they can play well like they were last year, then even if the offense is going to have a bad day and not really put up as many points as they should be putting up, the defense can be the backbone of this team and carry them to a win. It's not very often that we see a Packers team that has great defense. I mean, normally they really struggle against the run, and this year they might be the exact opposite of that. Another addition the Packers made this offseason was signing Josh Jacobs from the Las Vegas Raiders to replace Aaron Jones, who departed in free agency. Jacobs brings everything Jones does, but packs a little bit more of a punch. His versatility as both a ball carrier and a pass catcher is what makes him so special and why he can be a high volume engine that keeps this Packers offense on track. He had a slightly down year last year, but is poised for a big bounce back in 2024. And with LaFleur's commitment to the run, Jacobs will be heavily featured in the game plan. I mean, if they can have success on the ground, that's going to take pressure off of Jordan Love, allowing him to manage the game and make plays when needed. All in all though, if the Packers can control the clock and dominate the time of possession, they'll be a tough team to beat in the NFC North, especially when the weather gets colder in December and January. And as much as it pains me to say this, if you're a Packers fan, you got to feel good about what they're doing, which is why I'm going to give them a ceiling of 13 wins and a floor of 10. I'm sorry to the rest of the division and honestly the NFL, because everybody knows that they just have not been gifted, or I guess not cursed, with a bad quarterback. They've just always had a good quarterback. So I think this is still Green Bay's division. Now moving on to the next team though, they're probably the favorite to win the division is the Detroit Lions, and for good reason too. Dan Campbell single-handedly almost turned the Lions from a laughingstock of the league to one of the NFC's biggest contenders in a few short seasons, and the Lions are here to stay. Despite that, they are falling behind the Packers into second place in 2024, and again, that's just my personal opinion. They're still going to be a powerhouse in the NFC. As we look back on last year too, Jared Goff led Detroit to being one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL last season, and all signs point to them being even better this season. In 2023, he threw for over 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns, including 1,500 yards to his top target, Amon-Ra St. Brown. When you look at this offense, it's just built around a strong offensive line that embodies the hard-nosed nature of its head coach, excelling in both run blocking and pass pro.
Jared Goff in and of himself is not a top 10 quarterback. In this situation, where he will be protected where he plays almost all his games indoors, he is a top 10 quarterback. You add to that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery out of the backfield. I know Gibbs got dinged up, I think, today or yesterday. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great receiver. Jameson Williams has great talent. He finally showed some flashes of that in the playoffs last year. You upgraded the defense, adding Marcus Davenport and Terrion Arnold in the first round of the draft. I don't see a real weakness on this roster right now.
This unit's led by a Pro Bowl center in Frank Ragnow and tackle Penei Sewell, and gives Goff the time he needs to make plays and open up lanes for one of the most potent rushing attacks in the league. Like, I mean, look, the combination of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, it's been proven it's tough to stop, and as much as fantasy managers want Gibbs to take the full workload, I think the 1-2 punch is one of the main reasons they've been so effective. Like, I mean, when you look at each back in their own, they each possess entirely different skill sets among them, with Gibbs being shiftier and faster and Montgomery just being a better power runner. When you alternate between these two players, it means one stays fresh throughout the course of every game and makes the effectiveness per carry much higher than a league average running back duo. And now let's not forget the other rookie sensation that they had last year in Sam Laporta. Like, I mean, in recent memory, this dude had one of the best rookie tight end seasons the NFL has seen. And for a position that notably is slow to get up to speed in the NFL, Laporta was truly incredible, and his 900 yards and 10 touchdowns should only improve in the near future. Where I do believe that this Lions team is a little bit weaker is on their defense. Like, I mean, all in all, this defense kind of did struggle a good amount last year, and now that they lost CJ Gardner-Johnson as well, they don't really have that guy in the secondary to lean on for veteran support and just be the guy that everybody can turn to when they're looking for support. They have made a great effort at revamping their DB unit though, bringing in rookie corners Teron Arnold from Alabama and Ennis Rakestraw Jr. from Missouri, as well as Carlton Davis from Tampa Bay. Brian Branch also had an extremely successful rookie season last year, but he'll have to continue to develop his game for the Lions defense to truly progress into one of the league's top units. Of course, the hope is that honestly the corners won't need to guard their players too long because they still have a game wrecker in Aiden Hutchinson coming off of the edge. Hutch has been an awesome player in the NFL so far, but I think it's time for him to take that next step and truly become one of the league's best pass rushers. I fully am putting the expectation out there that he can get 14 or more sacks this season, and if he can get those 14 or more sacks this season with some contributions from DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport as well, then the Lions really do have the potential to turn around this defensive unit. All in all though, I am giving the Lions a ceiling of 12 wins and a floor of 9. I think they are right there with the Packers, and one of these two teams are going to win the division, but Jordan Love gives the Packers an edge for me. Now let's talk about the Chicago Bears, one of the most talked about teams that will be talked about this year, and because of a special player that they have at quarterback. However, the 2024 season presents a unique opportunity for the Bears to not just compete, but to potentially be a dark horse to win the NFC North, and here's why. As I just suggested, the most significant factor in the Bears' potential rise to the top of the division is the development of Caleb Williams.
And he making it look like, listen here, man, this is what I do. Y'all in trouble. I'm about to take this league by storm. When you watch him play, he cool and calm like he was in college. Obviously, the biggest thing for me is what showed up in college is showing up right here on this tape, right? We knew in the pocket he wasn't really phenomenal in the pocket, but we knew what he was phenomenal at. And that's getting outside the pocket, making big-time plays with his arm, with his legs, everything. And that's what we are seeing in this preseason. And he's making it look easy.
I know, it's exciting that the Bears have acquired a lot of top-end talent to pair with Williams in his first year, but I think it's more to do with what they do to develop Williams is what it's going to take, and what he can be at the NFL level than trying to compete right away. Like, I mean, look, the Bears certainly have a great roster, and they are one of the most underrated in the NFL on both sides of the ball, but the Packers and Lions are some of the toughest competition out there, and they have to play them twice a year. Now, I know, don't jump in the comments section yet, because that doesn't mean they don't have a chance, because with DJ Moore now opposite free agent pickup Keenan Allen and rookie wideout Rome Odunze, the Bears have some serious firepower at wideout. And sure, of course, even for me, it's hard not to be excited about just what the Bears can do this year, because we've seen what they can do in the preseason and on a Hard Knocks too. Like, everybody is excited about them, including me. Like, I mean, when we look at Williams just in himself, his pocket presence is already that of an elite NFL quarterback, and that's very hard to teach. More something that a quarterback just naturally has or just learns. On top of that too, from this past weekend, we all saw how his scrambling ability will give defenses absolute nightmares, and we are all well aware of his ability to extend plays and throw with pinpoint accuracy from crazy off platform angles. And I mean, when you consider also that behind Williams, you also have a top 10 defense in the league, it really is hard to try and tell how the Bears are going to perform this season. Eberflus turned one of the worst units in the league into one of the best, just in the span of a few games. Like, I mean, from training camp and everything we've seen so far, Jalen Johnson is one of the league's rising stars at corner and got the contract he deserves. Tyreek Stevenson is another intriguing young player at the second cornerback position and will certainly make some splash plays for the Bears this year. Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker are also a solid duo at the safety spot, but up front is where Chicago really thrives. Montez Sweat turned out to be a great piece for the defense, and the combination of TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds forms maybe one of the best linebacker duos in football. And look, I know that's a lot of praise for the team that I think is going to come in third place in this division, but I mean, are they going to win the division? Probably not. But do they have a chance? Definitely. What I can say for sure though is that they are going to be in the division running for a long time to come if everything does pan out. I mean, I think that Caleb Williams and his boys have a ceiling of like honestly 11 wins and a floor of 7, and it's a much wider range than the others, but that is expected with a rookie quarterback starting this year. I mean, when you look at their schedule too, honestly, besides the Houston Texans in the first couple weeks, and you could maybe say the Rams and Colts, they really don't have that tough of a schedule in the front half. But once you get past that, it does get a little bit tougher because then you're playing the Vikings, Packers, and Lions twice in the back end of your schedule. But overall, I think they are going to be like an 8 or 9 win team. Now, the last place team I think that it is going to be is the Minnesota Vikings, the team that I can confidently say that probably will not be winning the NFC North. The Vikings have a lot of work to do to bring this team back up to where it was with Kirk Cousins at the helm, a process that has become much harder now that JJ McCarthy is officially done for the season with a torn meniscus. And don't get me wrong, Kirk Cousins might not be the flashiest quarterback in the league, but he's one of the most consistent over the past few seasons, and the Vikings are likely now regretting their decision to let him walk in the offseason. With JJ done for the year, Sam Darnold is officially going to be the starter, which is honestly just a weird thing to say in 2024. And look, I know it's all not doom or gloom. I mean, they still do have Sam Darnold, who is a competent backup. And on top of that too, maybe the dude can like resurrect his career with the weapons he does have around him in Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones at the running back position. Like, there still is a chance that they somehow could make the playoffs out of this division. But I think arguably if they want to have like any remote success this season, it's going to have to come on the back of Justin Jefferson, who's arguably, he's not even arguably, he is the best wide receiver in the NFL. Like 25 years old and is back in training camp with no issues. I mean, his route running, his hands, and ability to make contested catches demands extra attention from defenders, which is going to open up opportunities for the rest of the offense. While the Vikings defense has been a weak spot for years, plaguing the team during its run with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, the addition of Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator last season really turned things around. Opposing teams averaged 21.3 points per game against the Vikings, which was the 13th best in the league. Flores, a former head coach with the Miami Dolphins, is known for his aggressive blitz-heavy defensive schemes. He's a coach who emphasizes physicality, discipline, and playmaking on defense. Under his guidance, the Vikings are expected to play a more attacking style of defense, which should lead to more sacks, turnovers, and just negative plays for opposing offenses. All in all, though, there definitely are some glaring holes in this defense still, which is why I did rank them last. I mean, even when you look at the defense, they still have a big hole at the corner spot. Stephon Gilmore did just sign with the team, so they did try to kind of address that problem that they were having. But for now, I mean, that's still an aging cornerback who's not the same player he was when he was on the Patriots or even the Colts. So I really don't know what they're going to do at the cornerback spot. Regardless of all of that, though, it just feels like a whole year is going to be wasted while the Vikings still can't find a long-term solution at quarterback after all the years of franchise tagging Kirk. Now we have to wait another full season before we even can see any regular season action out of JJ McCarthy. Like, I mean, I like Sam Darnold, but I just can't see them getting more than 9 wins with him at the quarterback spot. I mean, all in all, still, you really never know. It's a competitive division where they all take games away from each other, and that could still give them a chance in a worst case scenario for other teams to go and win. But I mean, for the floor, I will go with like an underwhelming like 5 wins for this team. I mean, when we look at their schedule, it does look pretty tough. I mean, in the first 5 weeks, they've got the Niners, Texans, Packers, and Jets, and then they have to go and play the Lions as well. Like, this is a pretty grueling schedule when we do look at it. So it's going to be a little bit tougher to try and get to those 9 wins, I do believe. But again, it's the NFL. You never know what could happen. But I mean, whether it's the Bears' young quarterback taking the next step, the Packers' stout defense and powerful run game, the Vikings' experienced playmakers and improved defense, or the Lions' explosive offense and newfound confidence, every team truly does have a path to the top. The NFC North truly is a 3-horse race with the Bears, Lions, and Packers, and I do believe it's one of the most talented divisions in football as well. I mean, those 3 teams that I just listed could all make the playoffs this year, but it's going to be a wild ride to see who does come out on top. What if I told you one division of teams is so boring and lacking talent that even the discussion of who will earn the home playoff game doesn't matter, because honestly, they'll probably just lose it anyways? I am, of course, talking about the NFC East. Now, before all of you guys jump in the comments section and tell me about how there hasn't been a repeat winner in this division since 2010, thank you for the comment. That's a really cool sabermetric or stat that you told me right now. But honestly, it just doesn't matter. Like, this division just stinks in my opinion. Like, I mean, the East is home to choking factories with massive roster issues and pathetic franchises in the middle of deep rebuilds that they aren't nearly equipped enough to handle. Every team in this division is either broken or boring to the point that it's almost smart to pick against them every single week. So in today's video, let's look at the East from the top to the bottom, from the almost obvious champions to be to the #1 overall pick as contenders possibly. This is why the NFC stinks. Now, the first team we're going to start off with is the Eagles, and honestly, they're the only team that we're going to be talking about today that could be actually considered actual contenders. Biggest holes this offseason. With the additions of Saquon and the succession plan of Cam Jurgens taking over for the legendary Jason Kelce, the running game should look the same or even better with Saquon in the backfield. And now with the addition of Dotson thanks to a recent trade, Jalen Hurts will have enough weapons that his fans won't be able to complain about nobody coming to support him. And like, I mean, honestly, fundamentally, their whole offseason was trying to break their broken defense that honestly was just in shambles last year. And honestly, I see all the moves they did make this season, and it kind of just makes me shrug my shoulders and say, why can't this happen again? Like, we've already seen them repeat it once. What happens if they do it again this season? I mean, first off, they might be the most likely team in football to lose a key player to injury. Last season, every starting player not named Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Swift, or Lane Johnson missed at least 1 game due to injury, and with Swift gone, Hurts perpetually banged up, and Johnson one of the oldest elite linemen in the game, I honestly have no reason to have faith in their ability to stay healthy enough to even make a deep run. More importantly than that though, how do we know they actually even got better? I mean, investments on the defense are good on paper, but new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio hasn't found a lot of recent success. And a lot of their projected starters like James Bradbury and Darius Slay are coming off of very down years. I mean, honestly, the coaching staff as a whole seems to be on the hot seat, and since there have been reports this season that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts aren't getting along despite their relative success together. I mean, Sirianni wasn't great at making changes when his team was struggling, so if Philly doesn't get hot like in early 2022, there could be trouble for him and the Eagles. I mean, honestly, the Eagles in the NFC, I think of just because of how open it is, they are in the upper echelon of the NFC, but in the whole entire NFL, I don't think they're like in that S tier if you want to rank them there. They're more in like the tier right below that, in like A. And honestly, I don't know if they're going to be able to make a run to the Super Bowl again. And I mean, honestly, with how easy this division is too, I just don't see how like that horrifying playoff loss from last year doesn't come back to haunt them still. I mean, they have enough talent and endurance to be good or even a great regular season team, but their style of play won't hold up anymore since so many teams have good film on how to stop them. And also with all the reports that Jalen, honestly, I can see their ceiling being 11 or 12 wins and their floor about 9 or 8. But if they manage to fumble this layup of a season away, heads will roll, and I believe that Nick Sirianni may be one of the first coaches to get fired. Which brings us now to America's team, and we all know that the Cowboys are going to suck this year, but in a very special way, by going probably 13 wins or even 12 wins and then losing in the playoffs just like they always do. But now with that aside, honestly, between this offseason, there has not been one conversation from this offseason that has revolved around them getting better after the humiliating end to last season. As we look back on last year, the Cowboys did end up winning the East last season thanks to the collapse of the Eagles in their defense. And I mean, to be fair, they looked extremely solid down the stretch. A lot of smart people saw them making a real run at their first Lombardi in multiple decades. Unfortunately for the Cowboys, they became the first team in NFL history to lose a playoff game to a 7 seed and did so to the youngest playoff team in history while at home. Like, I mean, honestly, the Packers just shattered every Cowboys dream when they beat them in the playoffs last year. And since then, they really haven't done a single thing to get better. They've just been in the news for the wrong headlines for not paying their players the proper amount to get them back on the field, like CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and I'm sure Dak, who I think they will let walk. Like, starting with Dak Dak and CD, they are the team's only 2 real offensive stars and are holding out for new contracts eventually, and Micah Parsons clearly wants one too. On top of that too, the team leading rusher Tony Pollard for some reason was allowed to hit free agency and walk, which would all be good and fine until you saw that they replaced him with the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott to be his replacement. Like, that made no sense. We all saw the training camp video of Ezekiel Elliott running through the drill and coming out on the other side just beat. Like, that dude is done. Stop trying to make him a running back. He's done. Also on top of this too, left tackle Tyron Smith tested the market and signed elsewhere, only to be replaced with rookie Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, who might be good, but who is also already dealing with injury concerns. Their center also walked, leaving another gaping question mark on the line, which already isn't amazing. That's also a huge loss to lose Tyron Smith, who was one of the best left tackles in the league. But then on top of that too, they let their center walk. I mean, like, honestly, there are just so many gaping holes in this offensive line. I don't know what they're going to do, but that's okay, because I'm sure if they didn't spend a lot of money to keep that offensive unit together and really try to bolster that offense that was really good last year, I'm sure they ended up spending a lot of money on the defensive unit, right? Yeah, keep dreaming, my friend. I mean, Dallas did at least manage to sign a bunch of veteran defenders to 1-year mercenary deals, but when you look at the list of guys signed, I challenge you to tell me who among them isn't either washed or pretty close to it. Oh, and worst of all, the Cowboys somehow still have Mike McCarthy running the offense and calling plays for them. Like, I would imagine that this dude is just bound to get fired this year. Like, there is no way he does not get fired this year if they win less than 10 games. Like, he's gone. I mean, on top of that too, they've lost Dan Quinn on the defensive side, who may be their only good coach. And I mean, even if McCarthy was decent, his best weapon just got a pay raise and is probably still pretty pissed off. Like, I mean, honestly, the Cowboys are just fundamentally broken. So even if they get their money figured out, getting to 9 wins will be enough of a challenge. Their ceiling is another 10-win year if contracts get solved and everyone plays at a high level, but Dallas's floor is like something of like 7-10, which is crazy to say, but I'm not going to hold my breath for the Cowboys, and I see them narrowly missing the playoffs and finally making some real changes at the coaching spot and at the quarterback spot too, but not before they get humiliated and raked across the coals for one more season. And now I think one team that really everybody is excited to watch this year is the Commanders. The Commanders might be the only team in the East with hope, and they're probably still going to suck. Now, let me start by saying this. I honestly do like the Commanders. For as much hate as I've given Jaden Daniels, I'm still excited to go see the kid play and see if he does pan out, or like I've predicted, turn out to be a bust. Like, I mean, up until the Dotson move, they made some great moves to try and get their team better. That being said though, there still are some glaring holes and just problems on this roster that they still need to address, and I think that's what's going to move them to being like a middle pack NFC team. To start, the most important position, Jaden Daniels has the talent to be the best quarterback in the division. I mean, Dak is mid, Jalen Hurts is injury prone, and Daniel Jones looks like one of the worst, most overpaid players in history, and might go down as one of the biggest just blunders in history. With Daniels, he has the raw ability to lap them all in one season, but the team around him still needs to develop. Daniels was named the week 1 starter before week 3 of the preseason, and it was pretty clear that he'd get the nod early on. I mean, his arm has looked solid, and he has Lamar Jackson level speed. If he can avoid injury, he'll be lethal on the field. His weapons are solid too, led by Terry McLaurin, but Washington just traded Jahan Dotson to the Eagles for some reason, so they're back on the market for a second option. Similarly, they balled out in the draft, stealing Jerzon Newton in the 2nd round. I mean, bolstering this defense is going to be a huge task that they want to handle too, especially when you've got a defensive-minded head coach like Dan Quinn, but they're still a few moves away from that. Sadly, Montez Sweat and Chase Young are both gone, and this secondary is still very young. To the Commanders' credit though, they've spent real money on the offensive line this offseason, signing 2 high-quality interior linemen to help keep Daniels upright. The line has some developing to do, but I'm not nearly as afraid about Washington keeping Daniels upright as I was about them for doing it Howell last year. So why do I have the Commanders coming in 3rd place then in the NFC West is what you're probably asking yourself. And to answer that question straight up is they're just a really young roster, and honestly, their coaches might suck, but who knows? I mean, Dan Quinn's last head coaching stint ended half a decade ago because he couldn't keep up with the developing offensive game for football. He's now charged with developing a team of young players built for that modern offensive game. game. And honestly, it leaves me with more than a few questions to see if he can develop still. Add those questions to a roster that is basically Terry McLaurin and a bunch of young guys, and chemistry becomes a very real question. I mean, in reality, the Commanders actually, I think, have a ceiling of 9 wins. They can get there, but unfortunately, I think more realistically, they're going to hit their floor of being like 5-12 simply because their head coach might suck, and they're just too young and newly assembled to overcome that if it happens. The one variable is if they end up back in the Brandon Ayuk sweepstakes, if he's even still on the trade market with their cap space and extra draft picks from the Dotson trade. But I mean, regardless, there is a change coming in Washington, and even if they suck this year, I don't think it's going to last very long. And finally, the NFC East nominee for the 2024's worst team in football, the New York Giants. And I mean, we can't cover the New York Giants without covering the elephant in the room, Daniel Jones, and how bad he is. Daniel Jones is entering the second year of his massive $160 million extension, which the Giants gave him during a holdout. Since then, he's thrown for 900 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and missed 11 games with various injuries. Oh, and just a week ago, he literally looked like a garbage can during the Texans preseason game when they played them. Like, horrible. I mean, Jones honestly has looked atrocious ever since the 2022 playoffs, which he only got to because of head coach Brian Daboll forced him to make fewer mistakes through his play calling and utilization of Saquon. And that probably isn't going to work anymore though, because Saquon is now an Eagle and Daboll is forced to treat Jones like a real quarterback because of how expensive he is. And now luckily they did go out and get some weapons in the draft via Malik Neighbors, who personally for me, I think that dude is going to be a stud. It's just if they can get him the ball with an incompetent quarterback is the real question now. I mean, as much as it hurts me to say this, I don't really think he will be doing much of anything with the Duke Dud throwing him the ball. And worst of all, the Giants offensive line is probably still one of the worst in the league. Like, I mean, even if Daniel Jones were to be serviceable this year, he's probably going to get sacked around 50 times. It was 30 in 6 games last year, so I'm being pretty nice with that guess. And on the defensive side of the ball, I honestly don't even know what the game plan is. Like, I mean, Brian Burns was a good addition, especially next to Dexter Lawrence, but they can't make up for a back 7 that leaves a lot to be desired. Daboll is one of the better coaches at maximizing his roster, but he's going to be asked to make chicken salad out of, well, you get it, yeah. And I think the most tragic part about this whole thing is I think if they do play terrible, which I fully expect them to, Daboll's going to get the short end of the stick and he's going to get fired for something that he shouldn't get fired for, I think. Like, honestly, it's all because of the GM's fault, because he decided to believe in Daniel Jones' agent that 4 years, $160 million was a bargain, which it's terrible now. I mean, honestly, the Giants ceiling, I give them like 7 wins, the same as what they escaped with last year thanks to the magic of Tommy DeVito, but their floor is probably something like 4 wins, maybe 5. That's what I'm going to go with. I mean, they honestly have the potential to become one of the worst performing teams in NFL history. And if they do pull it off, the Daniel Jones contract might honestly end up being remembered as one of the most overpaid contracts, similar to Russell Wilson's Denver deal. But there you have it. That is why I personally think the NFC East is just terrible this year. I mean, honestly, whoever makes the playoffs from this division, I fully expect them to get bounced in the first round. As you saw, I think it's going to be the Eagles, but a lot of question marks. Who knows? Maybe Jaden Daniels could take that step in his first year and be like CJ Stroud. I think that's what we're kind of like all saying about the rookie quarterbacks that are playing this year. But give me your guys' predictions down below. Give me who you think is going to win the division in each team's record. And as always, if you guys did enjoy the content, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one.